All right, welcome to your personalized deep dive crafted just for you.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to plunge into the world of cults
Oh, interesting.
using the book Cult Nightmares Inside America's Most Dangerous Groups.
Wow, that sounds fascinating.
Get ready for some pretty wild stories
Yeah.
and insights that you definitely won't find in your typical true crime podcast.
I'm intrigued. What strikes me about cults
Yeah.
is that they exploit a very human desire.
Okay.
The need to belong, to
Yeah.
have a purpose, to find meaning. But
Yeah.
the paths they offer to get there are often paved with,
Right.
manipulation and harm.
Yeah, that's what makes it so fascinating, but also disturbing.
Yeah.
We often think, I would never fall for that.
Right.
But the reality is these groups are masters at playing on our vulnerabilities.
Exactly. And Cult Nightmares really lays out a kind of recipe for disaster.
Oh, okay.
A charismatic leader, isolation from mainstream society, and then systematic mind control. Individually, these elements might not be inherently dangerous,
Right.
but when you combine them, they create a really potent mix.
It's like a perfect storm.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's break down that recipe.
Okay.
Starting with that first ingredient, the charismatic leader.
Yeah.
Think of those figures throughout history who just command attention.
Oh, really?
Make you want to believe what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that makes them so powerful?
Right, right.
And I guess, is charisma always a bad thing?
Well, not necessarily,
Okay.
but in the hands of someone with malicious intent,
Right.
charisma can be a very powerful tool for exploitation.
Oh, I see.
These leaders, they're incredibly persuasive, often targeting people
Yeah.
who are feeling lost, searching for answers, or just craving connection.
Makes sense.
They offer a sense of belonging and purpose,
Mm-hmm.
but at a really steep price, your independence.
Wow. Yeah, that's a high price to pay.
It is.
And then you bring in the isolation piece.
Right.
It's like they're creating a bubble
Yeah.
where their reality is the only one that matters.
You're exactly right.
It's scary.
Cults, they really thrive on separating their members from the outside world.
Okay.
So that means family, friends,
Got it.
anyone who might offer a different perspective. This isolation makes it much easier to control information
Right.
and shape people's beliefs.
And cult nightmares lists, some classic red flags.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Things like love bombing at the beginning,
Ah,
making you feel super special.
right.
And then there's the us versus them mentality.
Oh, clown.
And of course, punishing any kind of doubt or questioning.
Yeah.
It's like a frog being slowly boiled, isn't it?
That's a good analogy.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, it rarely starts with something dramatic,
Right.
They lure you in with these promises of enlightenment, community, love.
I see.
By the time the alarm bells start ringing, it can be really hard to escape.
Yeah.
Easily, I mean.
Oh, okay. So that brings us to some of the most infamous cults in American history. Wow. Cases where things took a truly horrific turn.
Right.
And the Manson family is one that's always captured the public imagination.
Definitely.
What is it about them?
Well, you see, Charles Manson,
Yeah.
he wasn't just some random criminal. He
Wow.
was a master manipulator
Really?
who understood the cultural landscape of the late 1960s.
So he was kind of a product of his time.
Yeah, he tapped into that counterculture movement,
Okay, right.
exploiting the idealism and disillusionment of young people.
Right. Those who were searching for something more.
Yeah, exactly. Questioning societal norms and searching for alternative ways of life.
And he offered them a twisted version of that
He did.
with his helter-skelter prophecy.
Oh, yeah, right.
About a race war.
It's terrifying.
It's terrifying how his manipulation led to the Tate LaBianca murders, which remain shocking even decades later.
What's particularly disturbing about Manson is that he didn't even have to be present at the murders. His followers were so indoctrinated,
It's unbelievable.
so convinced of his twisted worldview
Yeah.
that they were willing to commit these horrific acts in his name.
That level of control is it's hard to comprehend.
It really is.
And speaking of control,
Mm-hmm.
another infamous case is Jonestown.
Yes.
Now, we all know the phrase drink the Kool-Aid,
Right.
but that's actually a misconception, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So set the record straight. What really happened?
Okay, well, first of all, it wasn't even Kool-Aid.
What?
It was Flavor Aid.
Flavor Aid, huh?
And even more importantly,
Yeah.
the Jonestown massacre, it wasn't about voluntary suicide.
Oh, okay.
It was a mass murder suicide
Wow.
orchestrated by Jim Jones.
I see.
Over 900 people,
Oh, my gosh.
including hundreds of children,
That's heartbreaking.
were forced to drink cyanide-laced Floverate.
I've listened to some of Jones's sermons,
Oh, yeah.
and they are chilling.
I can imagine.
To hold that much sway over so many people, it really makes you question the limits of persuasion and free will.
Jones was a master orator.
Really?
He knew how to tap into people's deepest fears and desires.
Oh, okay.
He offered them a vision of a utopian community,
Right.
free from racism and poverty,
I see.
which resonated deeply with many who felt disillusioned by mainstream society.
Especially in the context of the post-Vietnam War era.
Yeah, exactly.
It seems cults often thrive during times of uncertainty and upheaval,
You're right.
when people are searching for answers and a sense of stability.
Absolutely.
And to round out our exploration of infamous cults,
Okay.
we have Heaven's Gate,
Oh, yes.
a group whose beliefs centered around UFOs
Right.
and a rather unique fashion choice.
Oh, yeah, those matching Nike sneakers.
Okay, they're definitely a bizarre detail.
Yeah.
But remind me, what was the core belief?
Okay, so they believed
Yeah.
that a comet passing by Earth
Oh, wow.
was actually a spaceship
A spaceship.
coming to pick them up.
Oh, okay.
But they needed to shed their physical containers
Oh, I see.
to be worthy of boarding.
So, hence the mass suicide.
Yeah.
All dressed in those identical black outfits
Right.
and those brand new Nike decades.
Yeah. It's
I mean, we can joke about the brand deals comment in Cult Nightmares.
it is a little bit of
Yeah.
dark humor.
But it really is a tragic event.
It is.
It makes you wonder, like, what drives people to such extreme beliefs and actions?
It really underscores the power of groupthink
Okay.
and the lengths to which people will go
Mm-hmm.
when they're convinced of a particular reality,
Right.
no matter how outlandish it may seem from the outside.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And this is where understanding the psychology of cult membership becomes really crucial.
I think there's a tendency to, like, judge cult members,
Yeah,
to see them as weak or gullible.
right.
But Cult Nightmares encourages us to look beyond those judgments and try
Yeah.
to understand, the underlying motivations of,
Exactly. And if we look closely, a clear pattern emerges.
okay, what is it?
Vulnerability is a key factor.
So are you saying that people who are already feeling vulnerable,
Yeah.
lonely, lost, searching for something to believe in,
Right.
they're more susceptible to a charismatic leader
Yeah.
and a tightly knit group
Exactly.
that promises answers and acceptance?
That's precisely. Take Jonestown, for example.
Okay.
The book connects its appeal to the social climate of the post-Vietnam War era.
Okay.
Many people felt disillusioned,
Right.
seeking community and purpose.
Uh-huh.
Jones offered them that,
Right.
along with the promise of racial equality,
Okay.
which was a powerful draw in a society still grappling with deep-seated racism.
Yeah, it's like cults exploit the cracks in society,
They do.
offering a warped sense of belonging to those who feel left out or marginalized.
And that exploitation continues today,
Really?
just in different forms. Think of contemporary cults like QAnon.
Oh, right.
Preys on feelings of disillusionment and distrust in institutions, offering this elaborate,
Yeah.
conspiratorial narrative that gives people a sense of control
I see.
in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable.
So it's not just about charismatic leaders.
Right.
It's about tapping into existing anxieties and offering seemingly simple solutions
Yes.
that appeal to people's desire for certainty and meaning.
Exactly.
So do you think that's what makes someone like Keith Raniere?
Oh, from NXIVM.
Yeah, so fascinating.
Absolutely.
Like, he didn't fit the stereotypical image of a cult leader, did he?
No, he didn't. He looked harmless,
Right.
almost nerdy.
Yeah.
But beneath that facade was a master manipulator
Wow.
who exploited women's vulnerabilities,
Oh, that's awful.
ultimately coercing them into branding themselves with his initials.
It's a chilling reminder that manipulation can be so subtle,
Yes.
even disguised as something positive.
Cult Nightmares quotes a former cult member who said,
Ridiculous.
they don't ask you to drink poison on day one.
No.
They start with meditation classes.
Yeah. I mean, that quote perfectly encapsulates how manipulation can creep into our lives,
It does.
often disguised as something harmless or even beneficial.
Right.
It's a slow, insidious process, and that's what makes it so dangerous.
Exactly.
We often think about cults as these, like, extreme fringe groups,
Yeah.
but this suggests that the line between healthy groups and manipulative ones
Right.
can be much blurrier than we realize.
That's a crucial point.
It is.
And it leads us to the question, if manipulation can be so subtle,
Yeah.
How can we learn to recognize it and protect ourselves?
That's a great question.
Maybe that's something we can explore further in the next part of our deep dive.
Yeah, I think our listener will be eager to hear more about how to spot those red flags in real life,
I agree.
not just in the headlines.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of cults.
Yeah.
We've been talking about, charismatic leaders,
Right.
isolation,
Yeah.
and mind control. That potent recipe that kind of draws people in.
It's a powerful combination.
It is, and now I'm
Yeah.
really curious to kind of unpack how these tactics play out in real life and what
Yeah.
kind of lasting impact they have on those who escape.
Well, it's crucial to understand the psychological manipulation involved
Okay.
because, it helps us make sense of the seemingly irrational behavior
Right.
we often see in cult members.
Makes sense.
And, of course, it allows us to offer more compassionate support to survivors.
Yeah, that's a really important point.
It is.
So let's dive into the psychology of these tactics.
Okay.
What are some of the most common ways
All right.
cults indoctrinate and control their members?
Well, one fundamental tactic is what's called thought reform,
Thought reform. Oh,
which some people refer to as brainwashing.
wow. Brainwashing, that sounds intense.
It is. It's a systematic process of dismantling an individual's existing beliefs and values,
Okay.
replacing them with a cult's ideology.
That sounds like a complete rewiring of someone's identity.
It is.
How do they even begin to achieve that?
Well, it often starts subtly
Okay.
with seemingly harmless activities like meditation,
Oh, wow. Okay.
chanting,
Right.
or group therapy.
Interesting.
These are designed to induce altered states of consciousness,
Oh.
making people more suggestible.
So they're creating a state of vulnerability, both mentally and emotionally,
Yeah,
which they can then exploit.
precisely.
Wow. That's,
It's sneaky.
it's really sneaky, yeah.
And once an individual is in that vulnerable state,
Right.
the cult will bombard them with information overload.
Oh, I see.
Endless lectures, readings, group discussions,
Okay.
all reinforcing the group's worldview.
It's almost like drowning someone in information
It is.
until they lose the ability to think critically or question what they're being told.
That's a good way to put it. And to further control their thoughts and behavior,
Yeah.
cults will often use techniques like sleep deprivation,
Oh, wow. Okay.
dietary restrictions,
Right.
even forced confessions.
Those sound incredibly dehumanized. Isn't the goal to completely break down someone's sense of self?
You're right. The goal is to eradicate independent thought
Wow.
and replace it with total reliance on the cult for guidance and identity.
Okay.
Any deviation from the doctrine is met with swift punishment,
Oh, gosh.
ranging from verbal abuse to isolation
Right.
or even physical violence.
It creates a climate of fear
It does.
where members are constantly walking on eggshells,
Yeah,
afraid to question anything. That must make it incredibly hard to escape.
it does.
Even when someone realizes something is wrong.
Absolutely. The fear of consequences,
Right.
both for themselves
Right.
and any loved ones still inside, can be paralyzing.
It's like they're trapped.
They are.
But even for those who do escape, the scars run deep.
They do.
So let's talk about that, the recovery process.
Okay.
What are some of the specific challenges that cult survivors face?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles is coming to terms with the fact that they were deceived.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's incredibly difficult to reconcile the person they thought they were
Yeah.
with the person they became under the cult's influence.
So it's almost like grieving the loss of their own identity.
It is.
And I imagine there's a lot of shame and guilt associated with that.
Exactly. Survivors often blame themselves,
Oh, okay.
questioning how they could have fallen for it.
It's understandable, but
They forget that they were victims of psychological manipulation, not perpetrators.
right. That's such an important distinction.
It is. And then there's the challenge of rebuilding trust.
Oh, yeah, of course.
After being betrayed by those they thought they could rely on,
Yeah.
it's hard to trust anyone, even those genuinely trying to help.
That makes perfect sense.
It does.
It's like their entire world has been shattered.
Right.
And they have to start from scratch to rebuild their support system.
They do.
What can friends and family do to help in that situation?
Well, the most important thing is to be patient and non-judgmental.
Okay, that sounds like good advice.
Avoid blaming or shaming the survivor for their involvement.
Right.
Remember, they were manipulated. Offer emotional support.
Okay,
Listen without judgment.
got it.
And validate their experiences.
I think that's so important, just to let them know that they're heard and believed.
It is.
And I'd imagine encourage them to seek professional help
Absolutely.
from a therapist specializing in cult recovery.
Yes, a qualified therapist can help survivors process their trauma,
Okay.
rebuild their self-esteem,
Right.
and develop healthy coping mechanisms.
Yeah, it's about empowering them to reclaim their lives.
Exactly.
Earlier, you mentioned the term collateral.
Oh, right.
We didn't really explain what that means. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. So collateral is a chilling example of how cults maintain control.
Okay.
In groups like NXIVM, collateral was essentially a system of blackmail.
Blackmail.
Members were coerced into providing compromising information
Oh, gosh.
about themselves or their loved ones,
Right.
ensuring their silence and obedience.
Wow, that's incredibly disturbing.
It is.
And it speaks to the level of control these groups exert over their members' lives.
Yeah, it makes the stories of survivors all the more remarkable.
You're right, their resilience in the face of such manipulation is truly inspiring.
It is, and it reminds us that recovery is possible,
That's good to hear.
even after the most harrowing experiences.
Speaking of those stories,
Yeah.
Cult Nightmares features some remarkable accounts of survival.
It does.
One that stood out to me was Sarah's story.
Oh, yes.
She escaped Heaven's Gate,
Right.
and what ultimately led her to leave was something seemingly small.
Oh, really? What was it?
Her dog.
Her dog. Wow.
Yeah.
Sarah's story highlights the importance of trusting our instincts.
Nice.
She left when the leader devalued her dog,
Oh, wow.
calling it a distraction from their, quote, spiritual mission.
Right.
That seemingly minor detail was a wake-up call for her.
It's amazing how a simple act of love and compassion for her pet became a catalyst for breaking free from such an all-encompassing belief system.
It shows how cults try to sever those personal connections
Right.
that ground us in reality.
But not all stories have such a clear turning point.
That's true.
Mark, a survivor of NXIVM,
Yes.
initially felt valued within the group.
Okay.
He was given responsibility, made to feel special,
Right.
but then things took a dark turn. Can you tell our listener a little bit about his experience?
Yes, so Mark's story demonstrates how insidious manipulation can be.
Okay.
He was drawn in by the feeling of exclusivity,
Right.
a promise of self-improvement,
Uh-huh.
but slowly the demands increased.
Oh, I see.
His loyalty was constantly tested,
Okay.
and eventually he realized he'd become what they call collateral.
Wow. Trapped by the information they held against him.
Exactly.
It's a stark reminder that anyone can be vulnerable to manipulation,
Yeah.
especially when it's disguised as something positive.
And that's why it's so important to be aware of the red flags,
Okay.
to trust our gut instincts,
Right.
and to seek help if we ever find ourselves in a situation that feels controlling or manipulative.
So let's talk about those red flags.
Right.
What are some specific things our listeners should be aware of?
Okay, so
How can they spot these potentially harmful situations, whether in a group or even a seemingly harmless relationship?
that's a great question, and it's something Cult Nightmares addresses directly.
Okay.
One key thing to watch out for is secrecy.
Secrecy.
If a group or individual demands extreme secrecy about their activities or beliefs,
Right.
that's a major red flag.
Because healthy relationships and organizations thrive on transparency,
Exactly.
not secrecy. It makes you wonder what they're trying to hide.
Exactly. Another warning sign is pressure to cut ties with family and friends.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
Cults want to isolate their members,
Right.
making them dependent on the group for all their social and emotional needs.
It's that us versus them mentality we discussed earlier.
It is.
Creating a false sense of belonging at the expense of real, meaningful connections. Right.
What other red flags should we be looking for?
Another big one is a leader who is never wrong,
Oh, okay.
who demands unquestioning loyalty and obedience.
I see.
Healthy leadership involves open communication,
Yeah.
accountability, and the ability to admit mistakes.
So if someone claims to have all the answers,
Right.
refuses to be questioned,
Yeah.
and demands absolute devotion,
That's a huge red flag.
it's a pretty clear signal to run in the opposite direction.
Absolutely. And if they happen to ban sarcasm, well,
Oh, yeah.
then you know it's really bad news.
Uh-huh. Good point. It wouldn't last 5 minutes in that kind of environment.
I know, right?
But jokes aside, these red flags are crucial to remember.
They are, and it's so important to trust your gut instincts.
Yeah, I think that's key.
If something feels off,
Right.
if a group or individual makes you uncomfortable, don't ignore those feelings. Talk to someone you trust.
Good advice.
Do some research.
Right.
And prioritize your own well-being above all else.
This has been a truly insightful...
Albeit somewhat unsettling.
It is a heavy topic.
Exploration of the world of cults.
It is.
It's made me realize how important it is to be aware of these dynamics,
I agree.
not just for ourselves, but also for our loved ones.
Absolutely.
I think the survivor stories we've discussed
Yeah.
offer a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of situations,
Yeah.
hope and resilience can prevail.
They do. And they also underscore the importance of seeking help and support when needed.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Recovery is possible.
Right.
And there are resources available to help those who have been affected by cult involvement.
That's good to know. Well, I think that segues nicely into our final part,
Okay.
where we'll shift our focus to the broader societal implications of cults.
Too good.
I'm curious to explore how cults exploit the cracks in our social fabric
Yeah.
and what we can do as individuals and communities to protect ourselves from their influence.
All right. Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll delve into those questions and offer some practical insights you can take with you.
Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, we've gone pretty deep into the world of cults,
Here we have.
exploring their, chilling tactics and the profound impact they have on individuals.
Right.
But now let's kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
What makes certain societies, vulnerable to these groups in the first place?
Yes. That's a really crucial question.
It is, yeah.
You see, cults don't exist in a vacuum.
Okay,
They often thrive in societies where there's a sense of unease,
I see.
where people are searching for meaning or grappling with, rapid social change.
So are you saying that cults are like a symptom of societal dysfunction?
Yeah, kind of.
Like a reflection of anxieties
It can
and
be.
unmet needs within a population?
Precisely. Think back to some of the cults we've discussed.
Okay.
The Manson family, for example.
Right.
They arose during a time of intense social upheaval.
Oh, yeah, the late 1960s.
Exactly. The Vietnam War, civil rights protests.
Right, a generation kind of questioning authority.
Exactly.
And Jonestown attracted those feeling marginalized and disenfranchised,
Right.
offering them that utopian vision of equality and community.
Exactly. Cults often provide simplistic answers
Okay.
to complex problems.
Right, like easy solutions.
Yeah, offering a sense of certainty and belonging
Makes sense.
in a world that feels increasingly chaotic.
But it's a false sense of security
It is.
built on manipulation and control.
Right.
You mentioned earlier that vulnerability is a key factor in cult recruitment.
Yes.
But it sounds like you're saying it's not just about individual vulnerability,
Right.
but also about, the broader social and cultural forces at play.
Absolutely. And those forces can change over time.
How so?
Well, in today's world, with the rise of social media
Right.
and online echo chambers,
Yep.
we're seeing a new wave of cult-like groups emerge,
Oh, wow.
exploiting the very technology that connects us.
That's kind of ironic, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, the internet was supposed to democratize information, but it's also become a breeding ground for misinformation
yes.
and extremist ideology.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I see that.
Online platforms can foster a sense of community,
Right.
but they can also isolate us in echo chambers,
Yeah, okay.
where our existing biases and fears are constantly reinforced.
So it's like the internet has created a perfect storm for cults to thrive.
It has.
They can spread their message further and faster than ever before,
Exactly.
targeting vulnerable individuals who might never have crossed paths with them in the real world.
You're exactly right. And these online groups
Yeah.
can be just as dangerous as traditional cults,
Really?
employing similar tactics of manipulation and control.
Oh, wow.
They use the same playbook: charismatic leaders, isolation from dissenting voices,
Okay.
and the promise of belonging and certainty.
So, given this new landscape,
Yeah.
how can we protect ourselves and those we care about?
Right.
It feels like we need a new set of tools
You do.
to navigate this digital age.
One of the most important tools is critical thinking.
Critical thinking, okay.
We need to be able to evaluate information,
Mm-hmm.
discern credible sources from propaganda,
Right.
and recognize the signs of manipulation.
It's about building what you might call a digital immune system.
I love that analogy.
So how do we build that digital immune system? Where do we even begin?
Well, it starts with education.
Okay.
We need to teach young people how to think critically,
Right.
how to evaluate information,
Okay.
how to recognize the signs of manipulation both online and offline.
It strikes me that this isn't just about protecting ourselves from cults.
It's not.
These critical thinking skills are essential for navigating all aspects of life in the 21st century,
They are.
from making informed decisions about our health and finances
Yeah,
to engaging in meaningful political discourse.
you're absolutely right. It's about empowering individuals to think for themselves,
Okay.
to question authority, and to challenge dogma.
And it's about creating a society that values critical thinking and open dialogue.
Exactly.
So you're saying that addressing these broader societal issues,
Right.
fostering critical thinking, promoting media literacy, building inclusive communities, that's actually a key part of protecting ourselves from cults and other forms of extremism.
Exactly. It's about strengthening the social fabric,
Okay.
closing those cracks where cults and extremist ideologies can take root.
That's a really powerful message of hope.
It is.
It means we're not powerless in the face of these challenges.
Not.
We can make a difference,
Right.
both individually and collectively.
Absolutely. And the first step, as always, is awareness.
Awareness.
By understanding the dynamics of cults,
Right.
the psychology of manipulation, and the societal factors that contribute to their rise,
Yeah.
we can be better equipped to protect ourselves and those we care about.
It's about being vigilant, being critical,
Yeah.
but also being connected to those we trust. Having those strong relationships and support systems in place can make all the difference.
Well said. And on that note,
Yeah.
I think we'll wrap up our deep dive into the world of cults.
This has been a journey through some pretty dark territory.
It can be a dark subject.
But I hope it's left you with a deeper understanding of this complex phenomenon.
I hope so too.
And more importantly, a sense of empowerment.
Exactly.
I think it's important to remember that knowledge is power.
It is.
The more we understand about cults and the tactics they use,
Right.
the better equipped we are to resist their influence.
Exactly. And remember, critical thinking, healthy skepticism,
Okay.
and strong connections with those you trust are your best defense.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We encourage you to continue exploring this topic
Yes,
and to share what you've learned with others.
absolutely.
Until next time, stay curious
Stay informed.
and stay connected.
See you next time.